Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back to the Quarantine Challenge, week 1, day 2. Today we're gonna talk about hip and glute strengthening, but also mobility. And so I'm actually outside today. I know yesterday I was inside, but just wanted to get out and enjoy some fresh air. I've got my yoga mat here in my driveway. I've got the dogs kind of roaming around as well, so don't worry, they'll still be involved. Let's get started. So we're gonna start with a little bit of a warm up. We don't wanna go into this completely cold, especially anything that's actually like strengthening. So I'm gonna start with some hip swings just to kind of open up the hips, get everything firing, get everything moving before we get into the other exercises. So I'm gonna start with facing either a wall or any sort of surface that you can kind of brace yourself on. I'm gonna hang on right here and we're gonna start with our right leg first. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it out to my right side with the toe pointed up, like up till the point where I really get that kind of tension in the hip. You don't want to push too hard, but just to the point where you get that tension in the hip. Then I'm going to bring it to the middle and over to the other side. Same thing, I'm pointing that toe up and to that left side. Kind of like I don't want a lot of bend in the knee, but I don't want it like totally straight, just ever so slight. And then back to the other side. So here it is in real time, I'll show you. So I'm really feeling that in the hip, of course, also a little bit in the hamstring while I'm doing this. And here it is with the other leg. All right, then in the same vein, we're gonna do basically another version of hip swings. It's just gonna kind of, I think, focus a little bit more on the hamstring, but as well as the hips. So I'm gonna face the wall. I have a nice convenient surface here because I can kind of brace myself really well on it, but you're gonna take whichever foot, which is my right foot right now, which is closest to the wall, and we're gonna go back and forward. When we come forward, we're really trying to go pretty high to get that nice hamstring kind of stretch while we're doing this, and then bringing it back. You don't have to go too far back, but enough to really get like that hip and glute involved in it. So forward, back, and also gets like the hip flexor involved. You can feel that when you really pull it back. So that's where it gets the hip flexor. And then on the other side, same thing. So now that we're a little bit warmed up, we're gonna progress into sort of more like activation. Everything that we're doing is a little bit of a mix between like activation and strengthening. It's not always just making things stronger. You wanna get your stuff like your glutes, you just wanna get it very activated. So this next stuff is going to help with that. Help it get activated, but also over time, help it get stronger so that you don't have to constantly activate it. So first one we're gonna do is donkey kicks. You've probably seen these before. It's essentially where you take your leg back like this and then forward. I actually like to start with a little bit of like a pump with the donkey kicks. So we go, put it up. You want the bottom of your foot to be basically parallel with the ground. And same thing with your thigh. And then we're gonna start with just like pumps. Just kind of really getting that glute activated. And then go into donkey kicks. So this is donkey kicks. All right, now let's do donkey whips. So this one we're gonna have our leg and our foot kind of extended. Keep that foot dorsiflexed, which basically means pointed like this instead of pointed out. And then have it all the way back. Thigh and shin should be parallel to the ground as much as possible. Back mostly flat. And then you're just going to extend out to the side until you get that tension in the hip. So there's where I get it. I don't get a lot of movement here. It's out till I get that tension in the hip, back in. Out, tension in the hip, back in. So that's donkey whips. All right, next one is fire hydrants, which these two dogs are both boys, so they know exactly why this one is called fire hydrants. Get down in that same position. This one's a little tough because I've got Luca here kind of in the way, but I'm essentially going to take my leg, keep that foot dorsiflexed while you're doing this, and bring it out with the knee bent until that same thing as the donkey whips, until I feel that tension in the hip. And I'm gonna bring it up as if I'm one of these dogs peeing on a fire hydrant. So that's why it's called that. And then just until you get that tension in the hip, bring it back down. So here's what it looks like in real time. All right, this next one's called hurdles, basically. So what I want you to do is to imagine that there's like a little hurdle or some little barrier that's to your side, and it's about yay high. It doesn't really matter exactly, but you just need to imagine that. What you're gonna do is take your leg back until your foot is essentially straight out, and then you're gonna bring it up and over as if it's coming over that little barrier, that little hurdle that we kind of imagined is there. So we're bringing it up and over like so. Make sure that the entire leg gets over the barrier. You don't want to pull it over like this, because if that foot is down, it's going to knock over that little barrier. So we need to make sure it's completely up. And then we're going to do the same thing going the other way. So really bring it back over that hurdle. Let's do some glute bridges. Now that we've kind of warmed up everything, our hips and glutes should be feeling nice and warmed up, nice and activated. Let's get some glute bridges. Glute bridges, we're essentially going to get on our butt and then lay down on our back. You want most of the weight on your feet on your heels specifically. So we're gonna lay back. We don't want the heels too close to the butt, because that's gonna just use the quads. We also don't want them too far away, because you're not gonna be able to really isolate like the hamstrings and glutes. So about this far. It's hard to say exactly, but you'll kind of know it. You'll know it when you feel it. In terms of when you're going up, you really want to feel it mostly in kind of deep in the butt in those glutes. Then just lay back, go up. We're kind of using the hamstrings as we go up. It's that last little point. Once you get to the top, you need to really push, like really squeeze those glutes and activate for like 2 1,000. And then go back down, up with the hamstrings, activate the glutes, 1 1,000, 2 1,000. Back down, up, activate the glutes, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, back down. Now the other essential component here is that we need to do with both legs as well. We just did it with both legs. We need to do single leg, because we don't want, if you have like an imbalance in your glutes, you don't want to exacerbate that by doing both. So if I have like a left glute that's just not as strong as the right one, if I'm just doing regular glute bridges, then that left one's just not gonna really get utilized as much. So it's gonna stay weak. Instead, we wanna isolate. Same exact thing, just lift up that other leg, hold on to your knee like you're on your shin, and then push up. Same thing, raise with the hamstring, squeeze the glute at the top, back down, raise the hamstring, squeeze with the glute at the top, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, back down. One more thing with glute bridges, if it's not quite enough of a challenge if you do these routinely, handy dandy bag of rice comes in play, or any sort of weight, kettlebell. Basically put it in your lap, and then while you're doing the bridges, this adds a little bit of weight so that your glutes have to work that much harder while you're going up. So same thing, put it in the lap, up, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, back down, up, squeeze, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, back down. So last one with no equipment is the single leg squat. Squats are tremendous on their own. I just find that the single leg squat really involves the hips in a way that regular squats don't. These are very tough though, keep in mind, this might take some time to build up to, but I wanna show you so that you can work on building up to this, because it's really great exercise for the hips. So we're gonna have, I'm gonna squat down on my left foot first. So I have the right leg up, knee slightly bent. Essentially keep the hands out so that you can balance yourself, and just squat down. I mean, squat down as if you're squatting on both legs, except the big thing with single leg squats, you really have to make sure that that knee, as you're coming down, does not go out in front of your toe. Really important, that part. So you're going to squat down, keep your balance, make sure that knee doesn't go over the toe, back up. Make sure you do this slow. Squat down, make sure the knee doesn't go over the toe, back up. Squat down slow. And I'm really feeling, not only am I getting the exercise with the actual squat, but I'm having to balance myself, which the hips are mostly doing, while I'm going up and also back down. I'm really having to work on balance with the hips. So that was a really good collection of exercises that are gonna really strengthen those hips and glutes and work on that mobility. If you have an elastic band, these last couple exercises are tremendous for really strengthening those hips, preventing stuff like IT band problems, hip problems, all that good stuff. So if you have a band, do these. Otherwise, all those other exercises that I just showed you are tremendous and are gonna do a great job on their own. So take your band, put it around your ankles. You can do your ankles or your knees technically, but I like to do roughly around the ankles. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna look straight this way, but we're gonna be going to the side. So we wanna be slightly bent. We don't want totally bent like a squat, but also not straight, knees locked. Slight bend in the knees, kind of in like a prepared position. Take the left foot forward, Then here's the really essential part. With that right leg, you don't want it to just snap forward. You want to bring it forward slow so that you have to resist the band. So I bring the left foot, resist the band, forward. Right foot, resist the band, forward. Resist the band, resist the band. And then I pretty much go maybe like 10 yards at most, really until you really get like a tension in your hips while you're doing it, until that point where you get a bit of a burn. And then once you're done, you go right back, right leg forward, resist that back leg, right leg forward, resist with the back leg. And then go until you get a nice burn in the hips. Then the next one, we're gonna be going forward. So face your feet forward, a little bit more than shoulder width apart, and make sure that your feet are pretty much perfectly facing forward throughout this exercise. We call this the monster walk. We're gonna just move each foot forward, but what you really don't want is the same thing with the other one. You don't want the leg to come in and then out. You want it to stay like even. So if you had like two lines going this way, or like skis or something like that, you're going pretty much in line with those the whole way. Your feet aren't coming in then out. Instead, your foot's just coming forward. Bring it forward, keep that tension in the band the whole time. And then once you get enough far forward, like 10 yards or just till that point where you feel that burn in the hips, go backwards. Same exact thing, keeping the tension in the band. That's the monster walk. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Implement this stuff in your routines as often as you can, 2 or 3 times a week. It's gonna do huge things for you in terms of preventing, honestly, like every injury. So many injuries start with weakness in the hips and the glutes. This is gonna help prevent that and just make you a stronger runner, increase your cadence, everything like that. Tune in tomorrow, Wednesday. We're gonna be talking about upper body strengthening. Still important for runners. I know you don't wanna necessarily get a big chest, big arms, or anything like that, but very important for runners, so we'll talk about that tomorrow. I'll see you guys then.